What do you think of this?
Child's Play, a terrifying...
You're supposed to be dead!
There's a legend round here. A killer buried, but not dead.
Tina, don't! Please, honey, come back!
You hit Mom again! Tina! I hate you! I wish you were dead!
They say he died as a boy, but he keeps coming back.
The only reason that I'm here is to help you overcome the guilt that you have about your father's death. That's all.
That's bullshit!
Sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry. I wish I could bring you back.
People forget. He's down there, waiting.
A bunch of us got together to throw my cousin Michael's surprise birthday party. I came over to invite your daughter.
Hi, Melissa.
I'm Tina from next door.
I know.
So he goes, let me see your ID. So I go, well, I left it at home. And he goes, you have to go and get it. So I go, okay, and I go.
Robin, did you see the way David just looked at me?
Oh, get real, Maddie. You're not his type. You need a little touch-up work first. Thanks.
Hey, Tina, isn't this the way they wear their jackets back in the mental hospital?
What was that crap you pulled on Tina this afternoon?
That chick's crazy.
Need a little touch-up work, my ass.
There's something really wrong here. I know it, and no one else believes me. Jason Voorhees. It was him in the lake. He got my mom. I killed him. Jason's dead. I don't believe you. You people give me the creeps.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
I'm going back to bed. You want to come?
Don't go out there!
Hi, this is Laura Park Lincoln from Friday the 13th, Part 7, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 97. And this time it's Friday the 13th again, and we are heading back to Crystal Lake, or wherever this one is set, I can't remember actually, for Friday the 13th. And I've got a little clip here just to emphasise this, and we'll talk about this in a little bit.
Tina! Bring me the axe!
Yes, it's the gayest of the Friday the 13th episodes, so we will be talking along those lines very shortly. But before we do, let's welcome the happy crew. So, Erik, how are you doing?
Well, the guy said I had to go get my ID, and I was like, well, I don't have it. And he was like, well, you need it. And I was like, okay, and so I go.
Some of the classic dialogue, yes. Mm-hmm. I was funny, as an aside, I was reading the Crystal Lake Memories book for some background, and the scriptwriter seemed to be most horrified by what happened to the film. So I wonder if that was a bit of dialogue he wrote.
Yes.
Possibly not. But, okay, Nathan, how are you doing? I know you're suffering a little bit.
I haven't slept.
You haven't slept at all?
No. I didn't sleep all night. I've been up all night.
It's like Tom Waits.
Yes, but it's giving you that sexy voice.
I guess that's one benefit to having this horrible sinus infection.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can, toss and turn later. But so feel better soon. But Joseph, how about you? Did you get any sleep?
I got a little bit.
Okay.
The time changed here, so I'm still off my bearings. But I just want to say I love Weekend at Bernie's.
Okay. And is that in reference to anything particular?
Yes. Dr. Cruz is Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And it's Rachel Green's favourite movie from Friends.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
she says Dangerous Liaisons is her favourite movie, but actually Weekend at Bernie's is her favourite movie.
I know lots of people like that.
Well, fair enough. And we've got that, and then we've obviously got Nathan's Aboriginal Roundtable coming up. What are we talking about this time, Nathan?
The scariest movie scenes.
Okay. Yes. Well, that'll be frightening. So, but yes, we're going to be going back. Again, it's Friday 13th, and this will be released, hopefully, on Friday the 13th of March 2015. And we'll be going back to 1988's Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, which it'll be interesting to see as we're getting up in there into the later sequels, how we react to those, because obviously we're getting into not exactly uncharted territory, but I know these divide opinion, don't they? And so we're looking forward to perhaps a messy split. But before we get to that, some recently seen, and we haven't recorded for a few weeks because, again, of our staggered recording schedule.
We recorded last weekend, did we not?
Did we?
Yeah.
Yes, we have. Why did I think we hadn't? Oh, it's because Joseph was saying you'd watched loads.
Yeah.
Okay. We did not record last weekend. We recorded the week before last.
Oh, Eric.
Oh, yes, I was in England last week. Yep. Oh, actually, we haven't recorded for ages. I was in England for the last 2 weekends.
Yeah.
It was Johnny on the show, and it was Rawhead Rex.
Yes, I apologize. Dublin. Oh.
Get your shit together, Eric.
Yeah. Come on, Eric.
Why don't you go fuck yourself?
Gosh. Okay, it's going to be one of those shows. Well, let's smooth things over.
Well, my penis is so big I could fuck myself.
Ooh.
Oh dear. Well, that's usually something we would have at the end of the show, but Eric's lowered the tone. So let's start with Eric first then. What have you been watching to get your mind out the gutter?
I watched The Phantom of the Opera. This is the 1989 Dwight Little version starring Robert Englund and Jill Schoelen. I can never remember how to pronounce her name.
Yeah.
It starts out in present day 1989 with people with big hair and huge glasses, and then what happens is Jill Schoelen's character goes to audition for a role in an opera. There's a stage accident and she's knocked out, and she sort of dreams about this past life she had in the sort of 19th century England, and that's where The Phantom of the Opera, novel comes into it. I remember seeing this back in the cinemas in 1989, possibly the only person in the theatre to see it, as far as I can remember. And I remember really liking it and thinking it was surprisingly gory, because this was made at a time, and this is a subject that will come up later on, where censorship was rife, and it was very difficult for sort of mainstream cinema releases to be excessively gory. But I remember this was, and I haven't seen it in 25 years. Rewatching it now, I had exactly the same response. Really entertained by it. Surprised at the amount of gore. It was a brisk pace. As I said, plenty of gore effects by Kevin Yeager and John Carl Buechler, who, of course, we'll be talking about later on. What I find funny, though, about it is that Robert Englund was so like, oh, this is my big breakout role. This is a chance for me to step out of the shadows of Freddy Krueger. Where, if you look at certain shots in the film, his scarred makeup is exactly the same as Freddy. It's very like his makeup in The Dream Child, Part 5 of Nightmare on Elm Street. And, his sort of baritone vocal delivery at times is very Freddy Krueger-esque. So it's basically a Freddy movie, if you ask me, but highly entertaining. And includes a completely ludicrous finale set back in 1989 as well. So big thumbs up for me for Phantom of the Opera. Probably not something that's been said very often in the past, but I enjoyed it.
Okay, I've never seen it. It's one that's eluded me. But Nathan and Joseph, how about you? Are you fans of it? Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw it I actually watched it about 6 years ago, and I do remember enjoying it quite a bit, actually.
Fair enough. Okay, well, it's one I've been meaning to catch for ages, because I remember reading about it in Fangoria back in the day. But yeah, never got around to it. So, okay, well, thank you, Eric. Anything else?
Yes, I watched Exterminators of the Year 3000, which is a wonderfully titled Road Warrior cash-in, one of many that the Italians produced in the early 80s. And this time, the precious commodity in question is water, and this young kid, actually the young kid from City of the Living Dead, I can't remember the actor's name, but he teams up with sort of this Mad Max-alike who's called Alien, and they try to evade the exterminators of the title as they go on their quest for water to help save humanity. So it's kind of like Waterworld in reverse, but like Waterworld, it implies that this quest has been going on for years and years, and then sort of halfway through the film, somebody goes, "Oh, look, there's a big water supply over there." So it's actually loads of fun. It's hugely entertaining for me, from my perspective. That's because I'm a big fan of these low-budget, post-apocalyptic Italian movies. I love things like The New Barbarians and 2019, After the Fall of New York, and Endgame. If you're not into them, you won't like it, because practically all these films are all the same. They're all quite interchangeable, in a Friday the 13th kind of way. They're all have the same plot. But I thought it was hugely enjoyable. Exterminators of the Year 3000. I just love saying that name.
It's not one I'm familiar with. How about you guys?
No.
Nope, haven't seen it.
No, okay.
People's heads get chopped off in it and stuff.
Okay.
So it does kind of qualify as horror. Yeah. I saw one other film, Justin, but I think I'm going to leave it for you to lead in on that, because I know we both saw it this week in the cinema.
Okay,
so,
yes. Yeah. Okay, well, before we get on to that, Nathan, how about you?
First of all, I want to say before y'all talk about that movie, I'm very jealous that y'all got to see it, and I don't get to see it yet. But moving on from that, I watched Zombievers, which I highly, highly enjoyed. I mean, it's totally a film that's up my alley. I mean, it doesn't have very likable characters, but I guess that doesn't really matter to me in this case because it's all about the Zombievers. They were the likable ones, I think. But I mean,
Erik, it's like having Benny Hill in the background.
I know. I'm just thinking that somebody from Zombievers actually plays a significant role in the movie we saw as well.
Oh, right. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. But, sorry, Nathan, carry on.
So the beavers drink some toxic waste, and they turn into zombies, and they kill off a bunch of teenagers. If they bite you, you turn into like a hybrid of a beaver zombie human. One of the girls gets bit and she grows a tail. And it like flaps against the floor while she's trying to kill people. Oh, and her teeth like grow out and they look like really huge buck teeth.
I'm won over, I think.
Is it like a trauma type film?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
it's very silly, over the top ridiculousness.
But did they play it for comedy or?
Yeah, I kind of think they played it for comedy. I don't think they tried to be serious with it. I don't know how they could be serious.
No, but I mean, is it done in a kind of a wacky, oh look, aren't we hilarious style like trauma movies are? Or is it more subdued?
It's not subdued, not at all. No. So yeah,
maybe I'll give it this then.
So anyway, that was one of the ones that I watched. I watched one called Camp Massacre, which I don't think any of you would be interested in, to be honest.
Well, it sounds interesting, but
the only reason Erik might be interested in it is there could be eye candy in it for him.
Oh, is this the one you were talking about for you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the guys that are at the reality show Fat Camp.
Oh, yes.
And they're getting killed off by the killer that wears a bucket of fried chicken on his head.
Well, I am completely won over in this one now, I have to say.
But here's the problem. This movie is almost 2.5 hours long, and it's a slasher movie. I'm like, a slasher movie does not need to be that long.
Wow.
And it just drags on and on and on. It's like there was no editor for this film. I can't imagine there's any footage left on the cutting room floor. But when you watch it, there's a lot of footage that should have been left on the cutting room floor to make it more of a faster-paced film. Because by the time it got to the end, I didn't even care who the killer was anymore. But I will say there was some fun. I mean, there was some laughs. But overall, I don't really rank it that high, to be honest.
Okay. And didn't you watch...
Like I said, Erik might like all the shirtless, guys in that movie.
What, all the shirtless fat people?
Yes. And some of them have very bushy beards, too, which I know he likes. So that's one reason I think Erik might like it.
Oh, Erik, stop it. See what you've done, Nathan.
I know.
You set him off.
But I do think he would like it for that reason. So, Erik, I would say watch and fast forward to the scenes with the guys, and you should be happy.
I will. Oh, no, hang on. I've just looked at a still from the movie, and they're too big. They're too obese. Sorry.
Oh, they're too big for you.
Yeah.
Erik, how dare you fat shame people?
Exactly. I can't imagine you say that very often, that someone's too big for you, Erik.
Fat shamer. You fat shamer, you.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well,
the last one I watched is I finally caught up with the New Zealand film Housebound.
Yeah.
And I really, really liked it. I thought that it was going to be your typical haunted ghost movie in the house, and I was prepared for that. So, I probably would have enjoyed it, but it just kind of takes it in a whole different direction that I didn't expect. So I really liked it. And that scene with the cheese grater, that's painful stuff.
I've not caught.
Have you guys seen that?
No, I'd like to.
I saw
things about it.
I watched it this week.
What did you think then, Joseph?
I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Nathan. I thought it had, a few effective moments, and I do like the direction they took it in because it's kind of out there. But for the most part, for my two main problems with the film is one, the lead actress. She's supposed to be like a 19-year-old girl, but she looks about 50. So it's kind of unbelievable that she would be, housebound. And two, she's kind of unlikable. I mean, she's so like just, closed off and kind of bitchy to everyone. So I couldn't really, get into her character. I actually like the stepdad the best, and he's kind of barely in the film. And the other problem I had with the movie is I think it tries a little bit to be too cutesy, like, haha, see what we're doing here. I don't know. It just it kind of bugged me. I mean, it has a few effective moments, but I wasn't really bowled over by it, to be honest.
I disagree. I mean, I don't disagree. Well, what I disagree with is that she looks 50. I thought she looked like a kid. I mean, I didn't think she looked like an old woman.
Boy, I watched it on a high definition television.
I'm not
it
getting
just really
it.
made her look like an elderly person.
I'm not getting that. But I do agree with you that she was incredibly unlikable. And I think they should have lightened up because I know what they were trying to do with her character. Like, she comes in, as this snotty teenager, and I think throughout the film she's supposed to kind of mature and change and things like that. But I think they made the mistake of making her too unlikable during the first half.
She doesn't really change at all.
Well, I mean, they only do like little things, like, finally when her mom leaves, she cleans the house when she didn't have to. She does like little things, but to me that wasn't enough. I thought I just felt they should have done more. I mean, the one scene that really bugged me is when her mom comes in and wants to watch something on television, and she not only, doesn't turn the TV to what her mom wants to watch, but she turns the sound way up so she didn't even have to hear her mom talking. I mean, I was a bit like, Mom, that mom should have smacked her in the face and took the remote from her.
Yeah, I think the plot turn they take is very clever. But other than that, I don't know. It's not something I would go out of my way to ever see again.
Okay, right. Did you?
But Erik, Erik saw it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't like it at all. At all.
Oh.
Yeah, the unlikable lead character, the twist, sort of whatever, 2/3 of the way in, where I think it's going to be one thing, turns out to be another. I didn't. It's an interesting twist, but I thought it was not one I would have welcomed. I wanted it to stay on the trajectory it was going on. And I thought it was too long as well. It was about an hour and 50 minutes. Now, I saw it about 3 or 4 months ago, and I don't remember a cheese grater scene. So maybe I need to rewatch it.
Oh, God. That scene was it was quite painful, I have to say.
Okay.
Well, cheese graters, it depends where you're, never mind.
Yeah, no, we'll move on from there, shall we? So is that everything you've seen, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph, how about you?
Well, I have a veritable candy box of films I've watched this week, because that's all I've done this week is just watch movies. Because I've had a lot of free time this week, so I'm happy about that. The first film I saw was Dark Skies. I blind watched that on Netflix, and it's basically about this family, a mother and her husband and their 2 sons. They're being basically menaced in the house by what appears to be an alien factor. It has some really effectively eerie moments in it, and some startling, imagery. But my problem with this movie, and a lot of movies like it, like Fire in the Sky or those aliens are pestering people movies, is that for one, I could never get into the fact that these aliens travel like billions of light years just to go into someone's house and stack their pantry in weird ways, and just kind of leave little marks here. I mean, it just seems so silly to me. And the other problem I have is, again, like a lot of these movies where someone's in a house of all these weird goings on, they never leave the house. They never did the sensible thing. They always do the dumb thing. So that kind of takes you out of it. And two, they have a problem convincing people that they're being, basically terrorized by this like alien force. And So no one in the neighborhood believes them. The police don't believe them, despite the fact that every night there's giant blue lights like emanating around and in the house. They're boarding up the windows. There's lots of noise going on. It's so unbelievable. And I know you have to suspend disbelief in movies like this, but they really do push the limits of suspending your disbelief. So aside from some really effective boo moments, it's not something I would recommend.
Okay, I have seen it, but I can't remember a single thing about it. So obviously it didn't leave a massive impression on me.
I've seen it as well, and I remember enjoying it, watching it. But like you, I can't really remember a huge amount about it, apart from a downbeat ending, I think. But
yeah, it has a pretty effective ending, but it's not really in service of a movie that's worthy of it.
Okay, what about you, Nathan?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, right. Well, what else? What else is in the cavalcade, Joseph?
Okay, I watched Wolf Cop, which is basically about this alcoholic sheriff, or he's not a sheriff, he's like a deputy in a small town. And he's just really lazy. He'd rather spend his time in a bar, putting back shots than, solving crimes. And basically he gets called out into the woods one night to investigate some sort of disturbance. And then he wakes up the next morning and basically finds out that he's become a werewolf. And it's kind of a horror comedy. The comedy, of course, doesn't really work. The horror actually doesn't really work, but there are some effective transformation scenes, and I guess there's one or two like kind of cute jokes here and there. But the problem with this movie is that they take this kind of I'm trying to liken it to some kind of, I'd say it's like a kind of a Toxic Avenger type premise where, the weakling becomes this strong kind of presence and he goes around killing bad guys. They try to go that route, but the problem is that the bad guys are so nondescript and there's like this whole kind of mythological backstory that I didn't really care about. The best part of the film is basically just the guy playing the wolf cop. I thought, he was really good and he was kind of likable, and he was just kind of fun to watch. And you do get to see actual werewolf transformation, but they take it one step further and show like his human penis turning into a werewolf penis, which is kind of interesting. And there's also a really good take on the whole Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf kind of mythos. They take that to kind of some sort of a sexual level in one scene, which is kind of humorous. But for the most part, it's one of those where the comedy kind of outweighs the horror and the overall fun factor, and it kind of dampens the film. So a mixed, maybe a slightly marginal recommendation, but it's nothing I would rave about or anything like that.
Okay, I haven't seen that one yet. I've seen it all over Facebook and bits and pieces and the soundtrack and stuff like that. But that sounds good. Well, not good, but it sounds like it's worth a watch, shite. Even if it's sounds like a shite. No, it sounds like a fun concept.
It's good for one watch. I wouldn't say it's a classic or anything, but one watch,
Yeah, it sounds like it's
harmless. I'd say it's harmless.
Okay, but Nathan, have you seen that?
No.
No. Okay. Right. What's next?
I finally caught up with the Town That Dreaded Sundown remake.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed this film, except for two things. One, like Nathan, I felt the ending. I didn't really buy it. It felt too Scream-ish to me. The rest of the film is just so kind of raw and almost scary in some places, and kind of brutal. And then very well shot, such beautiful cinematography. But then they just take that route of just unmasking the killer and them giving this huge, long-winded monologue and of why they're doing this. And I don't know, it just felt like out of place. It works in a film like Scream, but here it just didn't really work, even though this film does take a lot of the meta approach like Scream does, implementing the old footage and the old story, which I thought was clever, but for some reason just the ending just didn't work for me. That was one problem I had. The other problem that really almost kind of like made me want to shut it off a couple times is the gaffing on this film is like some of the worst I've ever seen. Like the lighting was so like blinding in spots where like they'd focus more on the like kind of like fluorescent bulbs in the back just shining right into the camera rather than they would, the actor or the actress. And it actually ended up giving me a headache in a few spots. I don't know if my eyes are getting worse with age, but they really need to tone down some of the I guess the contrast because it was really distracting. But, other than those two little points, I really enjoyed it. I thought, the camera work was amazing. Some of the kills are just downright, wow, I can't believe they got away with that, I really kind of felt bad for the gay couple that's out in the junkyard because they get it the worst, it seems. I mean, he just does not show any mercy to these two poor guys. But yeah, I mean, it's really effective. I'd definitely give it a thumbs up.
Okay, but I didn't notice anything. My eyes didn't go funny during the film. I don't know about anyone else.
No, my eyes didn't go funny either.
I didn't really notice, I guess. But, I mean, I watched it on my computer, so I didn't really have high definition when I watched it, so I don't know if that matters.
Okay, well, what's next, Mr. Magoo?
The last thing I saw was probably my favorite, and it's not even a feature-length film. It's a short film called Killer Cart. You can find that on YouTube. Just search for Killer Cart. That's Cart with a K. It's basically about this grocery store. A couple of people are closing a grocery store for the evening, and they start getting picked off one by one by a malevolent shopping trolley. I thought this was just, really clever, really kind of inspired, out there kind of short slasher film with a, shopping cart coming to life and killing these people one by one. It has like some really great camera shots, and they really, kind of play around with the shopping carts, like POV shots of the shopping cart, and the metal, like I guess you call them the grate on the cart just basically turns into teeth and starts like eating at these people and tearing them apart and chasing them around and ripping through car doors to get to people. And it takes on the whole kind of sort of the Terminator-esque ending with the final girl facing the cart in a kind of like a trash compactor and that kind of area, and it's just really fun. It's only like 14 minutes long, so it obviously doesn't wear out its welcome. I just thought it was like a film taking an inanimate object to make it into a slasher film. A movie like Rubber did this with a tire, but stretched it out to feature length, which was a big no-no. I think Killer Cart does like the whole inanimate object as a slasher just perfectly. So definitely look that up on YouTube. It's called Killer Cart.
I did start watching that, and it did look really good, and I had to go to work, so I forgot about it, but I will try and make time to watch it again soon. But Erik and Nathan, have you seen that?
No, I meant to watch it as well, but didn't get around to it, but will.
Okay.
I really liked it. I thought it was really good. It kind of reminded me of Treevenge, the little short film about the Christmas trees that start killing the people that decorate them.
Yeah.
Which that short was really good too. So.
Okay. Well, no, that's one to look out for. So, thank you, Joseph. Is anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, I'll just rattle through a few. I'll talk about I'll start with the bad and I'll end with the good. But I was rifling through Netflix and I was doing some work, so I just bunged on a film and took a chance on a film called Donna's Pass. And not as in Donna Marie, it's as in Donna, the killer cannibals from the legend of the Donna Pass. And it's from 2012, about a group of teenagers who got to a party in a house, in this kind of snowbound house, and then get picked off one by this cannibal. It's pretty awful. It's got a couple of good actors. The lead actress is pretty good, and the lead actor's not bad, but the rest of them are so unlikable. But not even just unlikable, just completely devoid of any charisma, charm. No, what's that? Charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent.
That's
yes.
it.
Yes,
That's it.
which they have lots of that, but not in the right way. So it's a pretty dire film. It's got a relatively clever twist about halfway through, but it's one of those films that just kind of zaps your energy when you're watching it. Not recommend at all.
Did you want the DVD to sashay away?
I did want the DVD. Well, it was on Netflix, so I should have reached for the red button, but. Sometimes when your film zaps you of all your energy, you can't do anything but just sit there and stare.
Well, Justin, if you can't love that movie, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Can I get an amen?
Indeed.
Do not ask me why I know that.
Well, I think seeing it's rubbing off on you, Joseph. Isn't it?
Well, actually, my girlfriend really watches that. She watches that show a lot, so I've kind of like caught it in the back. Not to go off on a tangent, but I actually kind of enjoy it. It's kind of fun in a way.
Yeah,
season 6 is the best season in my opinion.
It's just started, isn't it?
Well, season 7's just started. Season 6 is Bianca Del Rio, Courtney Act. Did you see that one, Justin?
Oh yes, yeah.
Because I love Bianca Del Rio. She's my favorite.
Yeah.
Out of all of them.
That was good.
But
fun.
Justin, you strike me as somebody who would more prefer Laganja Estranja.
Oh God, I couldn't stand her.
I was just kidding.
Yeah. Okay, Mama. Anyway,
God.
That was Donna's Pass, which was pretty awful. I've done going back to Grindhouse, 70s Grindhouse. I've just finally updated Hysteria Lives with some new reviews, and I've done a Tiffany Bolling double bill of like proto slashers, Wicked Wicked from 1973. And the Centerfold Girls from 1974. Just talking about them very briefly. Wicked Wicked is, I think it was put out by MGM or United Artists, and it was shot in something called Duovision, which meant that the screen was split in the same way as you get in Sisters at the end of Carrie. So you see the action happening so basically you see the killer on one side and then the victim on the other, and it's going to set in an old hotel where a killer in a mask, which looks very much like kind of Freddy Krueger mask, sort of predating that by at least 10 years, is killing off blondes who check into the hotel. And then Tiffany Bolling's character is a cabaret singer who turns up. She's brunette, but she wears a blonde wig for her performances. And so the killer goes after her. It's a sort of pressure comedy horror, I kind of guess, in the same way. It's got that quirky early 70s comedy of something like Homebodies or a number of those kind of early 70s thrillers where it's the emphasis is on black comedy. It's not bad. It's got a lot of but it's not a great movie. It's overlong. And spends too much time on the romance between the lead character and her ex-husband, and not enough time on the kind of the slashing. But has any of you seen Wicked Wicked?
No, but does the split screen, is it all the way through the movie or only for certain sequences?
All the way. There's about 2 or 3 moments where the screen goes to one image, but it's split screen the whole way through.
All right. No, I haven't seen it. It sounds good though.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. I think it's I'd probably work better on a big screen, because on a TV screen you're talking about a very thin image. But one of the problems with it is well, it's pointed out in one of the reviews, the reviews at the time, was that when you see the killer and you see the killer in one screen and the victim in another, it kind of takes away the kind of suspense because you know what's coming. But that was, and the second one, which I liked a lot more, was the Centerfold Girls, which was very nihilistic grindhouse 70s piece, which has it was basically an anthology and 3 stories linked by the puritanical killer played by Andrew Pine, or Prine, is it Prine or Pine? But he who's basically bumping off Centerfold Girls who he believes are immoral. And so in each of the 3 stories, he goes after them. And in the middle one, it's very, very slasher-esque. It's set on a desert island, well, not desert island, sorry, a deserted island with a mansion on it, where these girls and this crew go to do a nudie calendar shoot. And the killer shows up and kills them one by one with a straight razor. And that's kind of very kind of like in a very short kind of 30-40 minutes kind of proto slasher way, sort of bumping them off. So that was a lot of fun. The third one again had Tiffany Bolling in it, and she again finds herself being menaced by this killer, but at the end she fights back in quite a brutal way, which is kind of predates the kind of the fighting back of if you compare how Marilyn Burns was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre to how Tiffany Bolling is in the Centerfold Girls from the same year, then the Centerfold Girls is very much more looking towards, say, like something like Jamie Lee Curtis or Amy Steele in Friday the 13th Part 2, of that kind of female empowerment almost fighting back, although it's not a feminist film really in any sense of the word, because it's very 70s film. Like Tiffany Bolling's character gets raped and then more or less shrugs it off, and it kind of is something that can only really happen in the 1970s. But considering how nihilistic it was and ugly in a lot of ways, and very 70s, it was a film that I'd very much recommend. It was entertaining and different enough to be worth a watch. So is that one any of you've watched?
No.
Nope.
Not yet.
I haven't, but after hearing that, I really, really want to see it. Is it like the feel of the movie? Is it very, very serious, or is it kind of campy?
Well, it's a little bit of both, really. There's some campiness through it, but there's a kind of mean-spiritedness that runs through it that you get in that kind of slightly hard-edged 70s grindhouse. But it's tempered by the character. What's interesting, I thought about it, was the pretty much everyone in the movie is scuzzy. So like all of the people who, the would-be rescuers turn out to be, become rapists, and even the people you think should be nice actually are quite unpleasant. The only people who are nice in it and actually normal and likable are the Centerfold Girls themselves. Oh. So it's that mean-spiritedness is tempered by the fact that the girls, the women in the movie, are very likable and quite bubbly and fun.
And you said that it's like an anthology, but it's the same killer in every story, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically it's him, and he's working his way through a calendar or a sort of magazine which has got like Miss January, Miss February, and he's working his way killing them one by one. So the film continues, but it just moves on to a new story, but with him moving on to a new model. So none of them are interconnected, apart from the fact he's bumping off the same women from the same magazine. But yeah, an interesting curio from the time. And Tiffany Bolling, I think, was interesting, because I don't know if you know, she was kind of one of the leading actresses in sort of grindhouse films of the 70s, which she didn't particularly like doing. She kind of found herself fell into that, and she wasn't particularly happy with it. And I read an interview with her, and she's saying that at the end, when she's attacking the killer and fighting back, that her screams were in frustration at how shitty her career was. So she wasn't a big fan of those movies, which I know is something that probably annoy Nathan. But she also what will probably annoy Nathan and anyone. But if you Google her on YouTube, she's become a really slightly bizarre right-wing nut job who now does these very bizarre patriotic videos and is kind of borderline fascist. So an interesting character, but she's likable in these films. So I wouldn't.
Well, I could separate her from the character, I'd say.
Exactly. So those are those. But the film that myself and Erik saw at the cinema this week was It Follows, which is the brand new film, which has come for once has actually been released in the UK and Ireland about 2 weeks, fortnight or a month ahead of America. And it's by a director called David Robert Mitchell, and I don't want to spoil it too much. Well, I'm not going to spoil it at all, really. But it's essentially the story of a 19, 20-year-old young woman who is surrounded by her kind of slacker but likable friends and sister, and then she goes on a date with this young man that she likes, and they eventually have sex. And then she wakes up, and this is all stuff you see in the trailer anyway, so it's not really giving that much away. She wakes up, finds herself tied to a chair in this abandoned building, and he's there and he's apologising to her and says that he's really sorry, but he had to have sex with her because he needs to pass on this curse, which can only be passed on by having sex. And basically, she will now be pursued by this kind of thing, this kind of ghoul thing that will look like it could look like anyone, including her friends or family or anybody at all, and it will walk slowly but sort of determinedly towards her, and if it catches her, it will kill her. But she can run away from this thing and get away from it, but it will just keep coming. It will never stop. And the only way she can stop it, is temporarily at least, is to pass on the curse by having sex with somebody else. So that will pass down the line. But if that person then dies, then this revenant or whatever will then turn and return, coming back to her, and then work its way back down the line of these kind of sexual encounters. So the story really develops from there, from her not really believing it, thinking it's not true, to her then believing it, and then her and her friends trying to keep her safe, and trying to outwit this thing that keeps on coming for her. And I thought it was really, really good. It's not a film for everyone, because I imagine some people would find it annoying. It's interesting because if you're talking about a difference between a film like this and Zombievers, it's completely chalk and cheese, or even many other slasher movies, in so much the teenage characters in this are more like the characters you would find in a Larry Clark movie or Boyhood or something like that. They're kind of disaffected, but languid teens who just lie around reading ebooks and playing cards. They're not the kind of silicone-titted kind of, good time party girls or jocks. They're very kind of believable. So you have this kind of slightly odd combination of kind of almost art house slacker teens and not a slasher movie. But the very fact is, there's definitely parallels with slasher movies, because you have this killer in different guises just coming in very much like a Michael Myers type way after them, or after each of the characters that is then cursed. And there's definite nods. The film looks very much like it's set in Halloweenville. The streets are like straight out of Halloween. There's parallels with Nightmare on Elm Street. There's a scene that's lifted directly from that. But also it has the whole thing, it feels odd because, they're surrounded by, they're watching 1950s TV, listening to 1950s radio. The cinema they go to, there's an organist, which you obviously don't get in modern cinemas, but one of the girls is reading an e-reader on this kind of shell clasp, like a shell clasp thing, which doesn't exist yet. So there's something weird, something else going on within it, which I won't spoil now, and that's open to discussion anyway. But Erik, what did you think of the film?
I really liked it as well, and one of the other parallels with it is those J-horror movies from the early 2000s, late 90s, like The Ring, obviously, where you're trying to pass on a curse, or something maybe like The Grudge. What I loved about it, as you say, it's very much a teen horror movie done in an independent American movie style, which might be something that will turn people off. But for me, I liked it because it meant sort of long, steady shots, none of this rapid fire Michael Bay style editing, and there was very few of those cattle prod scares that you get in sort of mainstream horror movies that go around at the moment. What I loved about it most, I think, was the simplicity of the plot. It doesn't overcomplicate things. It's about a girl being pursued by a supernatural force, trying to understand it and then trying to get rid of it. I was thinking back to The Ring 2, both the Japanese version and the American version, and how convoluted both of those got when really, they didn't need to be. And that's what I loved about this film, was just the simplicity of the plot, and it just keeps going on a sort of very straight, narrow road, and I liked the ambiguity of the ending as well. And you mentioned in your review on Hysteria Lives, Justin, that you liked the music as well, which is a real standout and very unusual for a horror movie. It reminds me in places of, are you familiar with a German band called Popol Vuh, who scored a lot of Werner Herzog films in the 70s? Now, I'm not an art house film aficionado, but I do like their music. It's very kind of avant-garde electronic music that you just don't hear a lot of nowadays, but that's what this sounded like to me. Yeah, and as you said, it has this unusual feel where they're all like that girl who has the e-reader also has these enormous glasses that look like she's from 1986. Actually, she looks like the girl. Not the girl that gets turned into a cockroach in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, but the girl who has asthma in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and has those huge glasses. So, you think, okay, it's 1986. Hang on, she's watching a television from 1952. Oh, but she's reading this e-reader that looks like it's from 2027. Like, where am I?
I have a question. Did anyone look like Alan Dale in the film?
No. But if you're attracted to human beings, there's lots of nudie people in it, although sometimes they're all rotting and horrible looking.
Ooh, right up my alley.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of nudity in this film, isn't there? It's only a 15 in the UK.
Well, it's not violent is the thing.
No, it's not violent. Not particularly. I mean, there is some... The way that the killer kills people is particularly unpleasant, isn't it? But it's more... It's kind of more implied, isn't it, than shown.
And there's a great scene set on a beach that almost felt kind of out of place in the film. Did you find? It was great fun, I thought, but
it was without giving anything away really. But it was very, very well done. I mean, I thought the scares in this were particularly effective. I thought that it was very, very scary in places.
But you're saying you went with a group of people who, didn't feel that way.
Well, it's weird. I went with 5 people, including myself, so 6 of us. 3 of us thought it was really scary, and I'm kind of pretty much a hardened. I want to be scared by a movie. If I'm watching a movie like that, I'm not expecting to be scared by Friday 13th Part 7. But if I go to see a horror movie that is scary, then I want it to be scary. It's not. Whereas the 3 people I were with didn't rate it and didn't find it scary, but the other 2 people I were with said that one of them said it scared the bejesus out of her, and she had to talk to herself at night to tell herself to stop being so silly and expecting something to walk up the stairs. And that's like a 50-year-old woman, so we're not talking. That's why, because you said that people walked out, didn't you? In cinema?
We were. I suppose the screen was about half full, and within the first 30 minutes, I'd say 6 or 7 people walked out.
It's if you're expecting a typical slasher movie, a teenage slasher movie, a horror movie, it's going to probably disappoint you. But if you kind of happy to go with a slightly art house sensibility, but it still delivers on the scares and the set pieces, then you may well really enjoy this. But I thought it was, there's incredible shots like the one where the camera just pans round in a circle, so it's going round and round. Yeah. And every time it returns to the same space, you can see in the distance, because what it really does really well is the use of the widescreen. So sometimes you see the thing is coming towards the camera from a long way away, and sometimes you don't spot that thing until it's too late. But sometimes a scene will be playing out where people just talking or something can be happening, but in the distance this person is walking, and you don't know whether that person is the killer or not, because obviously other people are walking towards the camera as well. But you can usually spot them. But the way the camera is just spinning around slowly, doing 360 degrees, and every time it came back to that point, the thing was getting closer to the camera, and it was going around until it had gone, and then you didn't know where it was, and then you soon found out. So, I mean, I really liked it. It's got almost universally good reviews, although there's been unsurprisingly, a few dissent started to come out the woodwork, which is always what happens. But certainly, I thought it was a much better film than the Babadook. Yeah.
The Babapoo, more like.
But yeah, so anyway, I'm sure that hasn't ramped up your interest, Nathan and Joseph, at all, has it?
Sounds terrible.
I want to say it sounds bad, so I don't feel so bad that it's going to take forever for it to come out over here.
I thought
it comes out next week.
Joseph said it comes out next week, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was next month.
Friday the 13th it comes out, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah. So
I don't know if it's coming to theaters or not, though. It may come on demand. I don't know, but I'm going to try to find it regardless.
Either way, I like the idea of this thing can be anybody. So anybody that's walking, you have to assume, okay, this could be the killer. You don't know. I like that.
They did a similar
like movies do that.
They did a similar thing in Fallen with Denzel Washington, where the killer could be anybody because they pass on through touch. But this sounds like they kind of take it up a notch or two.
Well, have you guys seen From the Dead of Night? It was made in the 90s with Lindsay Wagner.
No.
Haven't you guys heard of it? Because it was one of those movies where, like, she has a near-death experience, and she's like traveling through this tunnel. And as she's going through the tunnel, she keeps seeing these silhouettes, like these black silhouettes that are really creepy. And like they're trying to revive her because she almost drowned, and they're trying to revive her. Well, she turns around and she's like heading back. Well, the things don't want her to leave. And when she gets back, she basically, they revive her and she's fine, but she saw 6 of these things. And basically she's told by the psychic that all 6 of them are going to come in some form or fashion after her. And what'll happen is anybody that has died recently, they'll possess that body and like come for her. And in the movie, like some of the people that died, like she knows them. And, she doesn't know, like there was one case where she doesn't know the guy's dead, because he died, like of a heart attack or something like that. So she doesn't know the guy's dead, and he's possessed by one of these things. And she's going over to his apartment, to have dinner, So, I mean, it kind of reminds me of that in a way.
Okay. No, that sounds interesting. I mean, I think certainly this film it's an amalgamation of lots of different things. The director, there was an interview with him. I think it was Den of Geek, which you probably find online. They printed off like kind of Cliff Notes type thing for the cinema I saw it at, and he says that he was a massive horror fan. So he knew all the conventions and various bits and pieces, and you can spot lots of as Erik said, there's a lot of J-horror references in there. There's the M.R. James Passing the Runes, which was Night of the Demon. All those things all come into play, but it feels quite fresh, but in a kind of retro kind of way. I mean, there's more. I talk without spoiling it massively. I mean, I'll talk a bit more about it on my review on Hysteria Lives about why I think about all this kind of out of time thing. And so, if you're interested in that, sort of check it out. But I thought what was particularly scary about it was that this thing is, although it's not real. Well, it's kind of real. It's a physical presence. So to get to the person, it still has to get in through the house. It's not a ghost. It can't go through walls. So. And also the other thing that's potentially scary about it is that the only person who can see it is the person who's cursed, and anyone else who's been had passed the curse on, they can also see these things, but no one else can. So when the thing comes for her, her friends can't see it. So even when it's in the room or coming for her, they can't see it. She's the only one who can. And that makes for some particularly kind of hair-raising passages where they can't see this thing at all, but she's she's in mortal danger, and it's only up to her to get away because they can't protect her literally because they can't see anything there. So, but that kind of segues us nicely onto your Mr. Akbar round table, doesn't it, Nathan?
Yes, it does. To whatever that was you said.
Or as I think it was David Mall on our Facebook page said, your anal paprika roundtable.
No,
that's Malay, by the way.
Malay, sorry, David.
He's got a pretentious little schwa over the E.
Oh,
like the chocolate.
How
Mexican.
pretentious!
Is he Mexican?
No, he's not. It's BTK.
Yeah. Of course it is. Yeah, Malay. Sorry, David, I'm BTK, aka BTK.
So, Nathan, do you want to tell us what? Remind us again. You've already said once, but what you'd like us to chat about this time?
Well, it's not necessarily the scariest movies that you've seen, but I'm talking about scariest scenes within a film. Because to me, and you guys know, Don't Go in the Woods is not really a scary movie by any stretch of the imagination.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But the scene of the girl hanging in the sleeping bag, I think, is very, very creepy. The whole scene of her seeing the killer off in the distance, and of course the guy's joking with her, so she doesn't. He doesn't believe her when she starts telling him somebody's out there. I find that scene to be very scary.
Didn't we get reviewed about that commentary? My third eye seems to be telling me we did.
Yes. No, I actually forgot to mention that we...
You're such a joker. Ha, ha, ha.
I'm a jester. I'm a jester.
Sorry.
You jester. Yes. You typically useless jester.
Yes, we got the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release of Don't Go Into the Woods is out, and the reviews are starting to come in. And we got a positive one in Fangoria, didn't we?
Yes,
very nice.
We got a good one in Fangoria.
Yeah. And we got a pretty good one in DVD Drive-In, which they usually give us quite good reviews. But we've had a couple of slightly sniffy, to say the least, reviews. But you can't please everyone, basically. And God only knows. I kind of people I know within the industry, and this sounds really pretentious, and I don't mean it to, but people I know who work within that kind of DVD and things. I mean, the infighting, not within the industry itself, but the fanboys and girls, some of them, on forums. It's a jungle out there. That's all I can say. And I try
do you
and keep
guys?
out.
Sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I try and keep out of it as much as possible because people, there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there. Put it that way.
Well, to keep things nameless, and I don't even remember the guy's name anyway, but there was one guy who he actually wrote and said that he refused to buy a DVD if we're doing a commentary for it. And I'm like, you would not buy it for that reason? Like, for some reason, you're forced to listen to it.
I know.
That was the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. I mean, I can handle a bad review of our commentary, but that's just stupid. I mean,
yeah,
it's just dumb.
Yeah. But not everyone gets us, do they? But that's fair enough.
The smartest people get us.
They do. Our dear listeners out there, we love you, one and all.
All three of you.
All three of you, yes. And given half the chance, Erik could work his way through every single one of you. Wouldn't you, Erik?
Well, it's not really polite of you to say, but yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, but yeah, no, pick up the the Blu-ray of Don't Go Into the Woods because
and buy it as well. Don't just pick it up.
No, yeah, pick it up and buy it. And as I say, we are next weekend. Although you won't know this, but well, we're going to be getting together to record the commentary for Madman, which will be an upcoming release by Vinegar Syndrome relatively soon. And apparently Gary Sales is looking forward to hearing what we have to say about the film.
Yes, I spoke with Gary a few days ago. He seems very interested in giving us more background information and helping us promote it. So be on the lookout for that.
Okay, right. Yes. Okay, well, let's get back to the round table. So... Nathan, do you want to start us off? Well, I was saying about Don't Go Into the Woods. I mean, I've sort of sparked it, but for me, the problem with that scene is if it was in a better movie, and I don't mean to do down Don't Go Into the Woods because it's got its own charms, but I find it difficult to find that scene scary because it's surrounded in a sea of cheese.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I do see where you're coming from.
That's the problem for me. Having said that, there's scenes like in Girls' Night Out. The end scene of that is a complete gear shift, and I find that quite spooky. So I can see where you're coming from. But any other ones you want to?
I would say another one for me is the beginning of Dario Argento's Phenomena, when the girl misses the bus. And she goes up to that creepy house, and you don't see what it is, but something's ripping on the chains while she's walking around. And I thought that scene was very creepy as well. And actually, I have to say that I find a lot of giallo films to be really scary until the ending. Usually, once the killer's unmasked, it's not as scary. But the build-up to before that happens, I find most giallos to be very scary.
Okay. Well, I know some...
Even the cheesy ones.
Well, what about you, Erik? Would you agree that giallo is scary? Any scary giallo?
So sometimes they can be, but generally I don't find them that scary. This is all very subjective. The scariest ones for me would be more ghosty ones. Like I found particularly the first Paranormal Activity to be very effective. The most subtle elements of it would be the most effective for me, not when it sort of gets to people being dragged around the house and that. I remember there being a scene where it was a static shot of the bedroom and all I could see was this shadow slowly emerging on the door. And I thought that was really, really creepy. So I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. I do love my, the cheese and the gore and silliness in horror movies, but when it comes to actual scares, I'm kind of old-fashioned, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. What about you, Joseph?
Well, I think we've done a variation of this at one point. I don't remember the specifics, but I think for me, stuff like Session 9 with the use of Foley and sound, just the way they basically the voices are booming, and even like the most subtle things of like dripping water just adds to the atmosphere. I think that movie's just permeated with a lot of great sound work, so it really gives it kind of I'd say more than just one scene in the film. I'd say a lot of the film is typically scary because of sound. But just talking of scenes, a couple come to mind, like obviously the eyeball in the door in Black Christmas, which we've been over, over and over. I still find that just terrifying. Another one I was thinking about was the scene in it's New Zealand, I think, Next of Kin.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah. The scene with the wheelchair, it's just very startling. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. I found that, genuinely terrifying. Another one for me is in the original Patrick, where the guy's laying in bed and something basically just comes right at the camera in the blink of an eye. It was really startling.
All good ones. All good ones.
Yeah, my favorite scares would probably be in. We were talking about J-horror. The Eye would be one of my. Although I'm not sure if is that Korean or is it Japanese? It doesn't matter anyway. But there's plenty of scenes in The Eye that I like, particularly the elevator scene, where there's this guy with half his head missing, floating around, and as the girl is standing in front of him. You know the scene I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I remember that.
Or where she goes to the calligraphy class, and there's a ghost standing in the corner who suddenly lurches out at her. I thought was very effective. And The Grudge as well was another great film for creepiness, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of floating around, another one I was going to mention is anything like, well, pretty much the whole movie, but the one scene in Dario Argento's Inferno, which is my favorite Argento film, of the waterlogged body scene. I just find that very, very eerie and just kind of otherworldly. Just all those bodies in soft focus under the water, just kind of floating around, all the little parts. It's just kind of gives me the chills, as it were.
I wanted to kind of talk about one thing Erik mentioned about, like you said, Paranormal Activity, the subtle scares. Because I agree with you. I find the subtle stuff to be a lot more frightening than the over-the-top stuff or anything like that. Because have you guys seen Grave Encounters?
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, like the beginning when they were doing very subtle things like the window barely moving and stuff, I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty creepy. But then it goes completely overboard, and it's not scary at all.
Yeah, we watched that at Grant's, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
It's like basically scenes like that with a window is like very effective. You're like, here we go, and then at the end of the film, like basically otherworldly beings are just basically coming out of the walls and the ceiling. It's just kind of overboard.
Yeah.
I would apply that to maybe Poltergeist as well. I thought some of the early scenes where Jo Beth Williams walks out of the kitchen and walks back in and all the chairs are stacked in a funny way was quite creepy. But then by the end, it's all flashing lights and strobe lighting and weird creatures, and it suddenly loses its effect, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there's a few that stand out that I can remember. I mean, obviously the scene. There's several scenes in The Exorcist 3, which we've spoken about quite regularly, about the hospital scene, the corridor scene, and also the beginning of that film. I think is quite very creepy, isn't it? With the camera, it kind of goes in like a wave, doesn't it? It kind of goes up and down, and it just sets the tone perfectly for that film. It kind of loses the end. I quite like, but it's those creepy kind of slow-paced scenes that are really good. Another one that just springs to mind is the mobile phone footage from Lake Mungo.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, that's a great one.
That whole movie. That whole movie to me is just frightening. Just the way it just builds and builds. That is one of the best movies I've seen in the last 20 years, easily.
It's so scary,
it's so eerie and so scary.
Yeah, that's one that sort of really sticks with me, which is actually I'm going to show to the people who didn't find It Follows scary, because it's interesting with the distinction. There's one of the people, he only really likes kind of big budget things. Funnily enough, we watched Annabelle last night and he loved it. And I don't mind Annabelle. I've watched it again. I thought, yeah, it's good, and like, you know, it you know, it has some scary scenes in it, and it's completely passable. But he loved Annabelle and was very sniffy about It Follows, whereas I think It Follows is a much better film. But he's one of the kind of people who just anything that's got a big budget or got money behind it, they love, you know. Whereas the other two people who were a bit sniffy, they are more interested in slightly oddball films. So I'm going to try Lake Mungo with them. The other films that spring to mind would stand out was the Woman in Black, the original Channel 4 TV adaptation.
Oh yes,
when he's in bed and then she comes down from the ceiling screaming onto him, which is remember that being a real showstopper at the time. The Haunting, the original Haunting, I think is got some very, very scary passages in it, especially with the two women in the bedroom and the things outside banging up and down the corridor, the noise, you know, just from sound design alone, and subtle camera movement, and the scene when she's in bed and there's voices coming out the wallpaper, and of course the classic scene when she's she tells the other woman stop squeezing her hand so tight, and then the other woman sits up to the other side of the room and she's not holding her hand, it's something else, which you know is I thought was really, really spooky. So I mean there's lots of, you know, good classic scares.
Yeah, Anal Paprika has lots of scary passages in it as well.
I bet it does, yes.
Two more I was going to bring.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, no, I was just going to make a joke. I was just saying, well, Eric, weren't you in that movie?
Nothing scary about my passage, baby.
But Justin bringing up The Haunting, it reminded me of The House on Haunted Hill, which is a very cheesy, you know, black and white movie from the you know, a bygone era. But the scene where they're kind of investigating, and the woman turns around and that old woman's just standing there. Oh my God, that part just scared the shit out of me. I love that scene. And another one I can't believe none of us have mentioned is the hallway scene in The Exorcist 3.
Mm-hmm.
Justin did mention it.
I just mentioned it.
I thought you mentioned the first one.
No, it was the third one.
Okay. Well, sorry about that. I must have went in one ear and out.
About it for 5 minutes.
There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're not mentioning. There's a lot of classics that have a bunch of scary scenes. I mean, I think there's a lot of scary scenes in Texas Chainsaw, but I just think we've talked about those movies a lot. So I've kind of been focusing on ones we haven't talked about as much. Have you guys seen Deranged from 1974?
Yeah.
Yes.
The scene where he's driving the waitress home, and he ends up stopping by his house and goes in, and he's been in there for a long time. So she goes in, you know, to see what's going on, and you know, she takes this lantern and goes into this back room, and there's all these dead bodies like stacked around, and you know, she's kind of freaking out, and then suddenly one of the bodies moves, and you realize it's him wearing the skin of one of the victims. I thought that scene was really scary.
There's a lot of scary movies out there, isn't there? And I think, yeah, you know, I can, in some ways, I kind of welcome I know it's probably been overdone now, and it's probably worn out as welcome, but the whole Conjuring, Insidious style scares is, you know, it harks back to those kind of earlier kind of scares from the movies like, you know, the Japanese J-horror and earlier The Haunting and films like that. As opposed to kind of gross out horror. So, but I think that its time has come and gone, really, hasn't it? So,
well, have you seen the trailer for the new Insidious movie?
Have I? I don't know if I have, actually.
The trailer is really good. It looks really creepy because, like, the girl, it starts really, you know, nice, and the girl's, you know, in this like apartment, and the boy next door has a crush on her and stuff. And one night she's laying in bed and she's knocking on her wall, and he's knocking back, and it's all cutesy. So she texts him and she's like, "Am I keeping you up?" And he writes, "No, I'm not at home tonight. I'm at my mom's house," or something like that.
Well, I think I have.
And then she realizes,
that, yeah.
Okay, something else is knocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gosh. Okay. Right.
There are, just before we leave it, there are a few spooky scenes, I think, in The New Blood, which we're about to discuss. I'm very much a fan of, you know, ominous things in the background of scenes. And there is a scene in The New Blood where Jason is standing in the corner. And he's not the focus of the shot. It's when Eddie goes down to get something out of the fridge. And there's a bolt of lightning, a flash of lightning, and you see Jason standing in the corner. And I'd watched The New Blood several times and never noticed it before. So I admire the subtlety of that.
I'll tell you one before we move on. Also, Hell Night, when they're having the conversation and the killer's coming up from the floor behind them.
Under the rug,
that's a good scene,
That's a good one.
Excellent. Well, I think we're going to come on to... should we move on to the main feature?
Let's come on to Jason.
Let's come on to Jason. So...
Continue.
Erik.
Oh, we've shocked Justin.
I think we've lost Justin.
Have we lost Justin? Yeah, I think we have.
How in the world? Because he's the one who initiated the call.
Justin,
this is the first time this has ever happened.
So, where did we get up to?
Sorry? I was masturbating.
We were coming on to Jason.
Oh, yeah, and I was doing that. Yeah.
Okay, well, so it is now time for Friday the 13th, Part 7.
Tina! Bring me the axe!
What chance does a teenage girl have against a maniacal maniac with a machete? Pack your bags and return to Crystal Lake to find out for yourself, if you dare. In Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, young Tina Shepard possesses the gift of telekinesis, allowing her to move things and see the future, using the power of her mind. But when a devious doctor tries to exploit her ability, the gift becomes a hellish curse. Tina unwittingly unchains the merciless, bloodthirsty Jason Voorhees from his watery grave, igniting a bloodbath that ends in the ultimate showdown in strength of mind versus pure evil matter. Experience the legacy of unrelenting terror that never dies. Okay, I remember going to rent this video, if you remember those days of the 80s, on VHS, and the lady in the shop promised that I would love the movie as it was completely different to the others. She said, I think her exact words were something along the lines of, you think you've seen everything when it comes to Friday the 13th, but this one's really going to surprise you. And she was right about one thing. It was different, because this was the very first Friday the 13th movie that I found to be really boring.
Erik.
Yes. I'm sorry, but it's true. It feels really rushed, and it turns out that in fact was the case, as we'll discover when we go into some of the background. If you compare this to Part 6, which seems to have a lot of care and attention gone into it, there seems to be a lot of detail in Part 6, whereas this one seems to have been thrown together in the back of a napkin and then filmed the next day. This is notable from the outset because the opening montage, where they're recapping some of the previous episodes, it's so poorly constructed and lacks energy. They do a similar thing at the start of the final chapter, and it's much more successful. One of the problems I have with, and it probably is one of the flaws in that opening montage, is the score. I think it's awful in Part 7. I mean, apart from the occasional use of some of the classic Harry Manfredini cues here and there, the new music by Fred Molin, I find is really bland and dull, particularly that opening credits music, which is just basically percussion. And John Carl Buechler has made a film that's so solely reliant on his effects that when they happen to all be removed by the MPAA, what you're left with is this kind of hollow shell of a movie that I still find it fails to hold my attention for 90 minutes, which, parts 1 to 6 never had that issue. And I'm not pushed on the trinity of Tina, Dr. Cruz, and Amanda Shepard as our three lead characters. Lara Park Lincoln is a likable presence, and she seems a really lovely person, but her character is just kind of boring. Terry Kaiser's Dr. Cruz is just kind of a one-dimensional villain, and Susan Blue is just so shrill, although I do love her fantastic haircut. And also then there's the controversial ending, and I mean, I know you guys probably like the film more than I do, but you'll have to admit that ending is quite lackluster. But I mean, there is stuff in it that I like. I think Jason looks amazing in the film. This is the best he has looked. I'm still not convinced Kane Hodder is the best Jason. Personally, I would prefer the casual menace of Richard Brooker in Part 3. But the makeup effects on Jason are certainly at their peak in this entry in the series, I think. And maybe Kane Hodder might have been my favourite Jason, were it not for the fact that he's in the 4 worst entries in the series, in my opinion. Only a couple of the kill scenes work for me, and this is, of course, the MPAA got their hands on the movie and censored it, down to nothing. But the sleeping bag death is still a standout. And also Melissa's death by axe to the face is still quite effective, and the way she's quite violently thrown across the room. But most of the kill scenes are just quite bland, I think. But there are, and we've discussed this before about slasher movies, some of the background characters are really, really fun. And if only they'd been brought to the fore a bit more. Characters of Maddie, the sort of, quote, ugly duckling, Melissa, the bitch, and Robin, who is the sort of, dipsy valley girl. Even Sci-Fi Geek Eddie, I think, is quite fun. And if they were given more screen time, maybe I would find the film as a whole more entertaining. But, as it stands, this is a sign for me that the Friday the 13th train was seriously beginning to derail at this stage, and it was only going to get worse, sadly. 1988 was the year that this went up against Halloween 4 and Nightmare on Elm Street 4, not at the same time, but just within the same year. And, to give it its due, Friday the 13th Part 7 is certainly better than Halloween 4, probably by about 100 times, but I would still prefer Nightmare 4 of the three big horror franchise sequels released that year. So for me, it's a very poor film, rescued by some fun characters and the occasional decent kill, but overall, I'm not a fan of The New Blood. So I'm going to pass this over to, I think, the person who will probably be the most polar opposite to me, and that is young Nathan from The Sexy Boys.
Yes, The Sexy Boys. Well, I love Friday the 13th Part 7. I actually think I like it better than Part 6. And mainly I think it's the characters that really help that movie. I do agree with you about that. I love just the little scenes, like the scenes with Robin and Maddie, where Robin says, we made a deal when we came here that we were going to have fun. Well, I'm going to stick to that deal. And I'm like, that just seems very realistic to me. That's a conversation those two would have had. And, I loved Maddie. I loved her little, her chase scene with Jason. I thought that was a really good scene. I never could figure out the layout of that shed that she hides in.
I do think that scene is very effective. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. The scene with her looking at him through the cracks in the wood. Yeah, that's a really good scene. I agree with you about Tina. I really like Laura Park Lincoln. We met her and she was really nice, really friendly woman. And, I like her battle with Jason, but up to her battle with him, she's just kind of a sad sack, She's just whining. She's very whiny throughout the first hour of the movie. It's all poor, pitiful me kind of stuff, and it's kind of a far cry from the heroines, I'd say, from the first, 6 films. I didn't find any of them to be particularly whiny. Some people might say Part 3, they might say that, Dana's character, Chris, was a little whiny, but not like Tina.
Well, you'd be whiny too if you could never forget that horrible face, never.
Well, that's true. Very, very true. Very true. But yeah, I like it. And, I do think that it would have been better if they would have, we could have seen all the gore scenes intact, because I do have a feeling that this movie was mainly going to be mainly for the special effects. And of course they were all taken out. So that kind of stinks. But one thing that Friday the 13th Part 7 has that no other Friday the 13th movie has is Melissa. Yes. She is fantastic. She has awesome fashion, late 80s fashion. She's got the great pearl necklace.
Justin is one of them.
Yeah, I was waiting for a comment about that.
Only on a Saturday night.
She's just such a mean person. There's not one likable thing about her, but I love her. And I love the scene where she wants to have sex with the lead guy. I forgot his name already.
Nick. Kevin Spirits.
Nick, yeah. She wants to have sex with Nick, and he's like, Melissa, I don't even like you. And she's like has nothing to do with it. She don't care if he likes her or not. So I thought that was a lot of fun. I like some of the dialogue in the film, but yeah, to me, this is what a Friday the 13th movie should be. It's, a group of teens in the woods getting killed off one by one by Jason, which is what I want every Friday the 13th movie to be. Sadly, this is the last one that really does that. But overall, I'm a big fan. Definitely gets a high recommendation from me.
One thing I forgot to mention is I love the line of dialogue that Tina comes out with, where Jason comes out of the lake and she wakes up on the couch and she goes, Dr. Cruz, I saw him, but I can't describe him. Or why not say it was a guy with a fucking hockey mask? How difficult is that to describe? It's not like some shapeless, invisible being came out of the water. Anyway, are you okay there, Nathan?
Yeah, you made me laugh, and I think it made me cough.
Okay, Joseph, your thoughts on The New Blood? I know you're probably siding with Nathan on this.
Actually, I would more side with Erik.
Yay!
I like parts of Friday the 13th Part 7. Melissa is just wonderful. I think she is the best thing in the film, bar none. She's better than Jason. She's certainly better than the whiny Tina. Without Melissa, this movie would probably be in the trenches for me. So I really love her character. I mean, we basically created a character for the movie we did based on her. That's how much I love her. I like some of the kind of like what you were talking about in the Albuquerque Round Table, where Jason's kind of like in the shadows. I like moments like that. The problem with this film is that whereas the first 6 they kind of have the Friday the 13th feel. I really felt they were starting to lose that here. It almost felt like a Cinemax film. The atmosphere was just kind of gone. It didn't really have that. That Friday, that Paramount feel for some reason to me. And the other thing that really kills it is it really becomes basically a soap opera of all these people just bickering over who's going to sleep with whom. And I don't know. It just kind of like just goes on and on. Tina and her whole Carrie, pity me. I have psychic abilities. Someone hold me. Just really starts to grate after a while, and that's not a knock against Lara Park Lincoln, who I love, and we met her. She's really nice, but the character just is so just. You want Jason to kill her after 20 or 30 minute mark, and then just focus on someone like Robin, who I thought would have made a more interesting kind of final girl, because she's kind of spunky and a lot more likable, I'd say. Not due to the fact that Tina is just mean. It's just due to the fact, like Nathan said, she's just this sad sack who just is constantly in this funk. It really grates after a while. There's one moment I really do like that they didn't do this in any of the Friday the 13th films up until then, and I don't think they've done it since then. Is during the showdown with Jason and Tina. Kane Hodder, I think he does a good job at this. When she's basically just beating the shit out of him with her psychic abilities, there's one moment where the hockey mask gets broken off, and Jason actually looks pissed off because he's losing. There's this one little moment where he's just like doing this kind of asthmatic, heavy breathing, and he just gives her this look like, "Oh, you bitch, you better not do that again." I thought that was kind of funny. They haven't done that since, and I was like, as a little note in the film that I liked. I am disappointed that a lot of the gore is missing, because I think that really could have, helped speed things along a little bit. I don't know. I just kind of side with Erik. I found it just kind of be, meandering, and just it just really didn't feel like a Friday the 13th film, despite the fact that these kids are at a cabin at the lake and getting killed by Jason. There's just maybe they threw too much soap opera stuff, too much of the Dr. Cruz trying to exploit Tina, too much of Tina crying. Not enough just, hack and slashes, which is I go to the Friday the 13th just for that alone. So, I mean, middle of the road. I mean, I like it, but at the same time, it's one of the very, very lesser entries of the first, at least the first 8 in the Paramount, fiasco before they, switched over to the New Line. I'd say it's probably my. Well, I'd say Part 8 is probably my least favorite, but I'd say this is probably my second least favorite of the first 8. So, middle of the road, recommend for Friday the 13th fans. Otherwise, it's just not something I'm crazy about.
I would agree. I think it doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th sequel at all.
No, it really feels like a made-for-TV Cinemax kind of,
exactly.
Almost like a and this is not a knock against something like like Rush Week. It almost feels like they shot it for like USA's Up All Night and just kind of threw it to them at the last second. It doesn't have that typical Friday the 13th atmosphere to me.
Which is, I suppose, an accusation people could throw at Part 5 as well. But we love Part 5.
Right. Part 5 is a little more deliriously entertaining. I'll give it that over Part 7 any day. But go ahead, Justin.
Justin, your
well,
thoughts.
Sorry.
Yeah, just said Justin, your thoughts.
Okay, right, thank you. I would, well, to be honest, I side more with Nathan on this one.
Yay!
I think this is a much better Friday the 13th film than Part 5. Definitely.
Boo!
I don't personally. I know it's apples and pears and difference of opinion, but I don't. This feels like a Friday the 13th film to me. Purely, it's a pure Friday the 13th film, whereas Part 5 wasn't. I think it was. I think it still looks pretty good. I thought some of the birthday party things when Jason's in the room and all the balloons around him and things like that are very evocative. And the scene of him walking out the water at the beginning, and you see his rib cage, the back of his, spine, and things like that are very, very well done. The characters I thought were all. I mean, Melissa's likable in the kind of the bitchy. They do it right rather than unlikable bitch. She's a likable bitch because she's like almost like a pantomime bitch. She's somebody you love to hate. The other characters, although they're very, very thinly drawn, there's certainly it's like they don't introduce the black couple until about halfway through the film, even though they've been in the at the party all that time. It's there's not really much to them, but they're all pretty likable. The whole Carrie thing, Carrie 13th type thing, I think it was, it's a bit laboured, but it's fairly fun. I think Lara Park Lincoln recognises, I think in Crystal Lake Memories, she says Tina is enough to give you a migraine. She's a very shrill and annoying character. But I really like Kevin Blair, Kevin Spiritus. He makes a good kind of final boy kind of hero.
Really? Yeah.
I agree.
Nothing else to it than that, is there?
Well, no, it's very easy on the eye, but I really like it. I think it's fun. It's what it is. What it is. Like Nathan said, it's a group of kids by the lake being killed off one by Jason in gory or truncatedly gory ways. And it has this kind of extra thing where they thought, all right, it needs a supernatural Carrie type thing just to give it the hook, whereas Part 5 had the faux Jason, Part 6 had the kind of the comedy sort of Jason back from the dead supernatural angle. I thought this was every time I see it, the more I like it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good fun time. I thought it was quite exciting in places. The characters were like I say, very thinly drawn but very likable. Funny little touches. Jason Kane Hodder is fantastic as Jason. Jason's actually quite I think quite an imposing presence in this one. The ending itself, the whole thing of Jason's father Tina's father coming out the lake and all that is very hokey and very silly. And I think we get to the background, we sort of realise that actually it wasn't quite how it was meant to end. Not exactly anyway, because he comes out, looks like he's just popped under the water for 10 minutes and got some.
Well, no, he has some muck on his face as well.
Yeah, it's a bit, but that's all a bit silly. I think if the film had all the special effects left in and the gore was still there, then we'd be talking about this in a much more favourable light. The explosion at the end of the house is pretty spectacular. I felt it feels like a perfect Friday the 13th movie to me. It's an effortlessly good time as far as I'm concerned. So I side with Nathan on this one. So there is a messy split.
There is a messy split. I'm shocked actually, because I don't see this as a perfect Friday the 13th movie. And even if it was just if it was called The New Blood and had no Jason in it and had somebody else doing the killing, I still would think it's not a very good slasher movie.
I mean, I know this obviously, and this is what makes it better than sometimes if we're disagreeing about a film. But I personally don't see it. I mean, I see it as it is like almost not the perfect Friday the 13th movie, but it's the amalgamation of lots of the good stuff from the other ones, and it's just boiled down to an essence in this. And I think it goes completely off the boil. Part 8 has its moments, and then it all goes very wrong after that. But Part 7, I really like. There's really silly bits in it. I like, the bit where the Tina makes the flower pot with the head in it, like Jason, things like that. Very silly, but they're fun. They're good. And you've got like Tina's mom's hair, which doesn't move at all, does it? 'Cause it's sprayed. It's like a helmet. She could have probably, if she put her head towards him, then he would have broken that was scimitar or whatever it was on her hair. So
that hair is fantastic. But I have to agree with Justin definitely, because I know you guys say it doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie, but to me it totally feels like one. I guess I don't see it.
I just think it feels really hurried and cheap, and I don't like. As I said, I'm bored by the Dr. Cruz, Amanda Shepherd, and Tina storyline. If it would just focus on the kids in the house, maybe it might have been a more entertaining watch.
It just felt to me like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it felt to me like almost like they used a different kind of lens on the film. It did not have like the sheen of the first, at least certainly the first 4 films. At least it felt so it almost felt like they shot it in a different frame rate. Like it just didn't move like a Friday the 13th film to me.
I also find it always quite curious with them. The later sequels always seem to be shot in the winter, didn't they? Because Part 6 has got that chilly feel as well, isn't it? And it's just everyone going away.
Yeah.
It's skinny dipping in the dead of winter. I'm sure not many people do that, do they?
Oh, somebody falling off.
My cat just went insane.
All right.
But I thought it had a nice, there were bits to it. I mean, I think it was a troubled shoot, wasn't it? There was stuff that, and we can talk about in some detail shortly. But when I was watching it, like Joe said, that scene when the kid's getting stuff out of the fridge and then Jason's behind him, and I think actually there might be the same scene when Jason's walking through and there's all the balloons, and that gives it, hasn't quite got the same gothic sensibilities of say Part 4. But I thought it was Jason in a house killing teenagers during a thunderstorm. It doesn't get much better than that, as far as I'm concerned. So,
how would you guys have felt, in all honesty, if Melissa would have been the final girl?
I would have loved that. I thought that would have been very unique.
That would have been different, yeah.
It would have been funny. I thought it was hilarious that she went through the whole film until her demise, just walking around completely oblivious, just being her bitchy self, and while everyone else dies, she wasn't even aware.
That's how self-absorbed she is.
She was so self-absorbed. She wasn't aware that there's all these dead people, and it wasn't like Jason hid them, was there? There was one. There was a head in a flower pot. There was somebody under the coffee table. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he was, But that was great. That scene, I love the scene when she opens the door and she just goes, "You're crazy. You're all, you're completely, batshit crazy," and opens the door and gets the axe in the head. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a fun movie, and that's all I ask for, really, with a Friday the 13th movie. We're not looking for great art. We're looking for an entertaining time, and I think The New Blood has it in spades.
I think one reason that Tina doesn't rank very high for me as one of the Friday the 13th heroines is, you guys know, if she didn't have the carry powers, Jason would have killed her. I really feel like the only reason she, won is because she had her powers.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that she could have survived otherwise, I guess. Like the other heroines, they had to fight, without any extra powers to help them.
I do think it was funny that, talking about people surviving, when Kevin Spiritus is on the floor and Jason goes up to other people, he crushes their heads, sticks in them, and he to kill Kevin Spiritus, Nick's character, he just puts his foot on his arse, doesn't he? And then pushes down gently on him. It doesn't really. On the small of his back. It wasn't really. It didn't look particularly serious about doing him any damage.
No.
I always think it's funny when killers who are basically able to kill people so easily, but seem to have a hard time with the final characters. You guys, I know all you guys have seen Fatal Games.
Yeah.
But that killer can throw a javelin across a football field and kill somebody. But at the end, can't hit a girl that's standing, 20 feet away.
Yeah.
I always thought that was funny.
Yeah. I also think it's funny that she was able to knock Jason over with a lampshade. It's like, what?
Well, I think it's interesting. I imagine that our viewpoints may concur a bit more as we we get further down the line towards the remake.
I have a feeling that yes, they probably will.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I put out a call on Facebook for people to give us their thoughts on The New Blood. So I'll just read out a few, if that's okay.
Yes, go for it.
Christopher Hassler says, unlike most folks, I really enjoyed the post-final chapter entries more than the first 3 entries in the series. These later entries at least look better than the first 3 and seem to me to be better paced. The New Blood would have been really great if they didn't cut down on the gore quotient, but I nevertheless like the carry angle that is brought in here. The ending here and how Jason is disposed of makes Jason Takes Manhattan's ending look like a masterpiece. And I think I would concur with that. I mean, we're talking about dodgy endings in the New Blood. How does it compare with the dodgy ending of Jason Takes Manhattan, do we think?
Well, that's
another tale for another day.
Yes.
Because I don't remember the ending to Part 8.
Oh, you're in for an absolute treat.
I mean,
toxic waste.
I can't remember it.
Do you remember the toxic waste and the...
in the sewer.
In the sewer,
yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, God, that was stupid.
Yeah.
It was so stupid. Oh, my God. You sound like Robin now.
Totally.
Yeah. Outrageous. Miles Hamer says, after the innovative popcorn blast of the previous installment, this is a very baggy, bloodless letdown. Once the kills have been mercilessly hacked by the MPAA, I'm left with a tiresome teen drama that's deeply unfulfilling. I think it's paraphrasing what Joseph said, actually.
Yes.
On the plus side, Hodder's a welcome presence. The final maskless battle is skillfully achieved, and there's some delightfully camp fashion to savour. 4 out of 10 for Miles. Yeah, camp fashion. I think we're all pointing fingers at Susan Blue's hair. Yeah. Michael Lake says, I like this one. I honestly like every Friday the 13th movie ever. Even Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and the remake. Oh dear, Michael. Sorry for that. It's my favourite horror franchise. Also, I demand more jokes from Erik. Well, obviously, people want to hear my jokes.
Did you just make that bit up?
No, he says that. If you go to Facebook, you'll see that he said that, yeah. Scott Pliskin. This was the best of the post-final chapter movies. I like the Carrie versus Jason type gimmick. Melissa makes a great bitch character. Sleeping Bag Death is classic. It's funny, though, that they never retrieved the dad's body from the lake. Actually, that is true.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
If only the police had done their job, Tina would have never tried to raise him years later, sending everything in motion. Looking forward to Erik and Nathan's joke of the week. Another one.
Yeah.
Have you got a joke of the week, Nathan?
I don't have one. I'm sorry to let you down.
Well, I have a top class one up my sleeve, so ready.
Great.
I do. I have a fan joke of the week, actually.
Oh. Okay, well, I just have 2 more bits of correspondence to read out here. Lars Garage Bandage Peterson says, what are your top threes? Mine are as follows. 3 at 3, 1 at 2, and 2 at 1. You gotta love that cat flushing and number 2-isms. Yeah. Somebody was on the vodka, I think. He also says, The New Blood has the next best main titles after the third one, which is so funky and disco. I can almost tap my leg whilst listening to it. Now, I don't know if he's being sarcastic there, because I hate the theme music to The New Blood. What do people...
I do too. I don't think it fits.
No, I don't think it works either. Justin, Nathan?
Well, I know I'm in the minority on this one, but I've never been a huge fan of Friday the 13th music anyway. So to me, it didn't really matter. Oh my God.
Somebody sick in their mouth?
That was Joseph.
Are you sick in your mouth?
No, I gasped and burped at the same time.
My goodness.
That was classic.
Oh,
he's a real boy.
It's going to be a classic.
Dublin.
Before we go any further into this hysteria, here's a little bit of I guess comfort, if you will. We will be covering Friday the 13th Part 8 later this year, but then we won't have another Friday the 13th until May of next year, and then we won't have another Friday the 13th until late of 2017. So it's going to be very paced for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, thankful for small mercies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. One last comment we had on the New Blood was Eben Chandler. He said, "I haven't revisited this one as an adult, but I enjoyed the hell out of it as a kid. Was up there with 3 and 6 as my favorites. And yeah, I know these might be unpopular choices over 1, 2, and 4, but I was a stupid teenager that put pretty ladies over quality pretty much every time when it came to horror movies." Sounds like Joseph, actually. And speaking of easy on the eye, Lar Park Lincoln was a cutie, but man, was Tina a drip of a leading lady. I would put her alongside Part 8's Renee. Yeah, that's how it is. When it comes to Final Girls, I wanted to finally die before the movie's goddamn finale. I always wished Elizabeth Caton's redhead Robin had been the lead. Had a bit of a Caton crush back in the day and watched a whole load of cheapo DTV nonsense as a result. She was a decent character, not too much of a bitch, had some presence in what little they gave her to do. Are there any Friday Final Girls you guys would happily see swapped out for one of the spunkier supporting ladies? No bitches allowed for obvious reasons. Sorry, Eric.
Dang.
Well, we discussed that. You actually discussed that you would like to swap Melissa for Tina for the Final Girl.
Yes, I would.
Or Robin, yeah. Mm-hmm. I would like to have seen Violet in Part 5 being swapped for whatever her name was.
Melanie Kinnaman.
Melanie Kinnaman. Pam, yeah.
I wanted
she could
Vera.
breakdance away.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Vera,
I wanted Vera from Part 3 to be the heroine.
I'd say in Part 4, the girl who sleeps with Rob, I think his name's Rob, the one that she takes a shower with.
Oh, no. Yeah, I know the
Sarah. I thought she was more interesting than Tommy Jarvis's sister, Trish. Although I've met her as well, and she's really nice. But it's weird. A lot of these Final Girls, that aside from Amy Steele, who's just awesome, you meet a lot of these people and they're so nice, but you don't really like their Final Girl characters as much as you do them as people. It's weird.
What's crazy is I like all the Friday the 13th heroines, to an extent, but there are a few that, the side characters are more interesting.
Right.
Yeah, when you met Lar Park Lincoln, did you talk to her about Knots Landing, Nathan?
Yes, I did.
I thought you would, yeah.
Of course I did. I asked her about it.
I basically just said, hey, big fan, blah, blah, blah. And then I stuck the phone in her face, said, can you record an intro for us? And she was like, sure.
Oh, cool. Actually, I have one more. I've just realized. Ara Alishan. Sorry.
Alishan.
That's it. Alishan. That sounds more like it. This is actually my favorite entry in the franchise growing up, but now ranks somewhere in the middle of the original 8. I still love Dr. Cruz in the final battle with Carrie. I mean, Tina. But for some reason, the rest of the film hasn't aged as well for me. There are some great kills, but they've been noticeably butchered by the MPAA, to say the least. Also, I hate the opening montage and narrative. Yay, that's what I said. I'm pretty sure you can let your fan. Sorry, there's a word missing there, and I can't think on my feet about what it is. Contrasty, and that's not even a word. Contrasty. I grew up thinking Jason Takes Manhattan was one of the weaker entries in the franchise, and now love it. Contrasty. Thank you, Ara. I should have proofread these before I read.
Erik.
Yeah, I know.
You went cunt trusty.
Did I?
Yes.
Contrasty. Con.
Okay.
Con!
Yeah, so it is. We're getting mixed emotions about the New Blood.
Yes.
As I expected.
Well, as we expected, wasn't it?
I wasn't expecting you to like it as much, though, Justin, I have to say.
Yeah, no, I was surprised myself, actually. I remember I've always liked it.
I was going to say, I was totally prepared to be alone in this again.
Oh. Well, yeah, I don't know. I was watching it and I really enjoyed it, and I thought, and I was aware of all its shortcomings. I think that's possibly part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much, because I knew I wasn't going to be disappointed, because I knew the ending was shit and there were bits that weren't particularly good, but all the rest of it was effortlessly entertaining, basically.
I wish I could say the same.
Well, there you go.
Okay, will we go into some background?
Yes, let's get some background.
Who has background for me? Come on, baby. Tumbleweeds, Nathan?
What
is that whistling sound?
I was trying to do a cricket sound because, what can you really dig up on Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just a lot's known about it, I guess. I know that the sleeping bag death, he originally hit the girl against the tree 3 times. But I think that got trimmed down by the MPAA, and that was probably one cut that they actually benefited the movie. Because I think hitting her against the tree once was more effective.
Yeah.
Justin, do you have any background you'd like to share?
I've got a few bits. I mean, I've got a couple of bits here, and then I've got some contemporary reviews that I just could read a few bits out from. Just say that Lar Park, she consulted psychics, didn't she? So even though she, this is a Friday 13th movie, and as we know, back in the day, people were quite sniffy about it, but she consulted psychics to see how to play Tina. Famously, there's controversy, well, not controversy really, but Robin's death about being thrown through the window, which is, to be honest, was like pretty much a kind of just a reshot of what happened in A Kill in Part 4, wasn't it, with the girl thrown out the window. But I've got the most recent DVD release of this, which has got all of the great little featurette, which has got the two girls, Robin and Maddie, go for a makeover, the actresses who play them. But Robin's character, when she's thrown out the window, they do a slow-mo and show it's a stunt double who's got very muscular legs, and she says that it was a man in a wig. But the director says no, it wasn't. It was a woman with muscular legs. So who knows until they come forward whether that was the case. But the other bit, so there's an awful lot on here, and obviously I think Eric's probably got quite a lot, and Joseph might have some stuff as well. But Crystal Lake Memories is obviously a great, and also making the other one's Making Friday 13th, isn't it? Which is the David Grove book. Is it David Grove? I think it's.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, so those have got loads of background. But one of the things is that Buchler wanted to do a direct sequel to this film and have Tina in an asylum, being taken back to the mental hospital, and then her and patients being stalked by Jason in the hospital, which I think wasn't that going to be, that was the original plot for Part 3, wasn't it, with Amy Steele's character ending up in hospital. So but that didn't happen, partly possibly because this film, although this film made a large amount of money compared to the budget it was made under, apparently the film was pulled by Paramount from a lot of cinemas in its second week to make room for Crocodile Dundee. And Two, was it? Okay, yeah. And so it didn't do as well as it could have done, basically, but it still made a good amount of money. But I've just got a few contemporary reviews, bits and pieces from them, and that I read out. And here's a snippet from the New York Times review by Karen James, and says, as you can imagine, most of these are pretty sniffy, but says the Friday 13th series may have started as a slasher film and become a teenage cult favourite, but somehow it's turned into a long-running serial about an odd but familiar neighbourhood. Like the evil twin of Lake Wobegon, Crystal Lake is a little town that time forgot, where all the men are dead, all the women are dead, and all the teenagers are above ground, but not for long. Guest corpses come and go, but the malcontented star remains the same, Jason, the mass murderer in the hockey mask. This crazy kid tends to get chained at the bottom of the lake a lot, but he always surfaces in the summer to kill young lovers in the woods. Sidney Gannis, who was at the time the president of marketing for Paramount, said that Jason had become part of the vernacular, and answered why he or she, I'm not sure it's a man or a woman, thought that Jason was still so popular. Says, I think it's because he is genuinely frightening, and teenagers genuinely love to be frightened. A whole generation has grown up on Jason and keeps going back. Where is he? The last little bit was Paul McKee in the Winnipeg Free Press said, clinical tests show the majority cause of death in teenagers is Jason. Okay, so I lied about the clinical studies, but after watching yet another instalment in the sickening Friday the 13th movie series, you do get the impression that star slaughterer Jason is the main reason behind declining numbers in teen population. The most popular kill of the night was the girl in the sleeping bag. Jason picks her up in her bright yellow designer bag and smacks her against a tree. This elicited cheers from the audience, and we allow these people to vote and drive cars. So, as you can see, the critical, the critics weren't any kinder to Part 7. So yeah, it's always a salient reminder to remind ourselves that that back then these films were seen as really as as the lowest of the low. So yeah, so that's my background. But
Joseph, do you have any?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, this is probably a well-known fact, but I'll just throw it out there just in case.
Wait a minute. Eric, I'm sorry. Did you know that Alan Dale was in Neighbors?
Which one was he again?
He was in Friday the 13th Part 7 as well.
Yeah.
He played the girl with the big hair. It turns into a cockroach.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Well, before you do, Eric, you probably come on to this, but one thing I forgot to mention, of course, I kept on trailing it as Friday the 13th.
Oh, yes.
But
yes.
it's famously, if you read Crystal Lake Memories, most of the male characters in this were gay, even though quite a lot of them weren't out the closet at the time. And so it was quite a fun shoot, like a lot of these would be, as you can imagine, a lot of teenagers or early 20-somethings on making a film. But yes, certainly Kevin Blair is gay, and most of the other the main characters in it, the men were as well. So this was that's why it's been dubbed, and it's called by some of the actors being interviewed in Crystal Lake Memories as Friday the 13th. So.
And
it's the Nightmare on Elm Street 2 of the series.
It is, yes.
And apparently there was some hooking up going on too. And you'll actually, if you got the book Crystal Lake Memories, you can read all about it.
Yes, because apparently Jeff Bennett, who plays Eddie, had a thing with Bill Butler a few years after the film was made.
Oh yeah. Actually, it wasn't on the film. I guess it was afterwards. But yeah, because he mentions that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the original title on the script was Friday the 13th, Part 7. Jason's Destroyer. Of course, the pseudo title for it was Birthday Bash, to sort of keep fans away from the set. In the original draft, all the teenagers are actually in a school together. And, I use teenagers in quotes here. It's all the same characters. It's just a different scenario. They're in school. They're headed out to Crystal Lake to collect algae samples with their teacher. Tina spots a figure underneath the water, thinking it might be her father, and she accidentally resurrects him. Accidentally resurrects Jason, I should say. Also, at the behest of associate producer Barbara Sachs, who doesn't come off very well when you look at any of the documentaries or read the books about her. Apparently she was a bit of a battle axe. There was supposed to be an unscrupulous property developer who was trying to build condos on Crystal Lake despite protests from the locals about its dodgy past and how it'll attract Jason back to the area, blah, blah, blah. So Frank Mancuso eventually vetoed all this, and the script was rewritten to what we see today. In the Crystal Lake Memories, actually, it's, somebody else who doesn't come off quite well is John Carl Buechler himself, because the scriptwriter Daryl Haney describes him as 6 feet of walking mediocrity. It was shot in Alabama and Los Angeles in February and March of 1988. Reshoots were in a place called Topanga, and Robin's death, where she is thrown from the window of the house, was actually shot in the same house that was where the Jarvises lived in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. It was a rush shoot, as we say. It was 6 months from the start of pre-production to when it was eventually released on May the 13th, 1988, the same day as Maniac Cop, the William Lustig film. If you look in the movie, Eddie, at one stage, the sci-fi geek, is reading the February 1988 issue of Fangoria. He's reading an article about Cellar Dweller, which was John Carl Buechler's film prior to this. And as you said, it didn't do too bad at the box office. It made $19.2 million. But it was, it was on the wane, definitely, because Nightmare 4 came out later that summer and earned, a shed load, almost $50 million. So, yeah, Jason was definitely had his, best days behind him at this stage. Yeah, so that's more or less all I have. Apart from, another thing Barbara Sachs said was that she didn't like the makeup that they'd come up with for Jason, saying that he looked too much like a frog. So I don't know. I don't see a frog there.
Froggy the 13th.
Yes. Yes.
Ribbit.
Yeah, and she's actually the one responsible for the ludicrous ending as well, because originally Tina's father was supposed to look decayed, and he had this elaborate prosthetic makeup on him as he jumped out to drag Jason under the water. But she vetoed that and said, no, you're going to have him looking quite normal with just a bit of muck on his face, because it won't at all be ludicrous.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? And there was also an extra scene, wasn't there, right at the end? Where
where Jason jumps out and pulls a fisherman out of his boat.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of deleted scenes. You can see them on the deluxe edition DVD, that deleted scenes that aren't necessarily gore scenes. So that's all the background. As usual, we're sort of skimp on the background for Friday the 13th because there are about 15 million books and documentaries out there about it. So
it's never been released. The extra gore scenes have never been released, right?
Only as in very, very shoddy work print footage as extras on the DVD. That's all.
Okay. Because I have a theory, and my theory is every time they release a Friday the 13th box set, they leave one thing out. So they'll always have something to add to it to keep milking the series.
Well, they say on the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, the DVD and Blu-ray that came out last year or the year before, they say that when they went searching for the bonus footage for Part 7, they found a memo in the box saying, destroy all the cut footage, basically, all the original elements. So it's gone forever. All we have is this sort of old VHS work print, which has got tons of tracking issues and barely watchable.
That's sad.
That is sad, really.
Do you know what would cheer you up, though?
What? Your joke of the week?
My joke of the week.
Oh, Erik.
Yes.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Okay, what is Kevin Spirits' favourite new metal band?
Don't know.
Lar Linkin Park.
I must say, Erik, if you really like shitty music, that was funny.
Thank you very much.
I like.
As you know, I don't like shitty music. I like cool music, like Toya and Spandau Ballet.
Well, Linkin Park is just terrible. They're just terrible.
I like them.
Of course you do.
But that was for Erik's musical choice.
Oh boy, I have a joke of the week.
Yes. What is it, Joseph?
This is from. Oh boy, I don't remember who it's from. Let me look up who it's from. So you guys just talk amongst yourself for a second.
Okay.
So, who out of the podcast would you snog first?
Who you asking?
Both of you. While waiting for Joseph.
Okay.
Oh, you'll never know now.
I never know.
No.
This is from Corey Parker.
Oh.
And it's a Friday the 13th joke.
Okay.
So it has to be somewhat good. I'm sorry, Corey Hall.
Yeah, Corey Parker is an actor from Friday the 13th Part 5, isn't he? Isn't he one of the
He's one of the greasers, isn't he?
Yeah, the greasers.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Corey Hall. Anyway, Corey Hall writes in and asks, how many Jasons does it take to screw in a light bulb?
2.
Nope, just 1. But he kills the bulb for screwing.
The timing was impeccable with the
That was quite good.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Although I think I liked Erik's joke a little better. Sorry, Corey.
It's okay. I mean, I'm the professional, so there's no shame.
This is true.
Does Corey have a podcast? I don't think so. Ha ha ha.
He has got a great name, though. Corey is the best name ever.
And way to insult one of our listeners there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not enough. Now we're down to 2.
Yes.
So, okay. Right, well, that was Friday the 13th, Part 7. So I hope you enjoyed it. But we have some feedback now, don't we, I think? So who would like to go first?
I will.
Okay.
Oh, I'll let the cat go first.
Okay, Straps, read your feedback. She's done.
That's perfectly timed.
Well, I would agree with what Stripes had to say there.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I agree with her.
Mew, I'm learning. All right, this is from Sean Gamble. And he says, hello, long-time listener here, first time contacting you guys. I love the podcast. It gets me through my hour-a-day commute. I just finished up Friday the 13th podcast, and it's a great listen as always. I'm guessing it means part 6. Anyway, that movie will always have a special place in my heart because I traded a VHS copy of the Three Stooges shows for a dub of Friday the 13th part 6 from cable. So that's probably my first introduction to horror flicks. You guys all work well together, and it shows. I can't wait till you do The Mutilator. It's a favorite of mine. I have searched out new podcasts that you guys mentioned, like Scream Queens, Kruger Nation, and Giallo Chow Chow. Scream Queens was a chore to get through. I really love your podcast because it gets me to rewatch some movies I haven't seen in years and to dive into new ones. If I could just suggest one thing, it would be to include a segment on the best possible media that the podcasted movie is about. I guess that's because I started collecting in the days of Anchor Bay, Elite Entertainment, No Shame. It would be a pretty neat segment and bring back Cat. And please bring back the cat flushing a toilet. Have a great one, guys. Thank you, Sean Gamble.
Well, thank you, Sean. Although I respectfully disagree about Scream Queens, I do still think
I
it's
have
the best.
to disagree as well.
Yeah, I think it's the best podcast currently out there. So, but
second best podcast currently out there.
Well, yeah, apart from ours, obviously.
Yeah,
but,
I'd say it's the third.
Okay. Well, anyway,
But I have to say, though, about one thing that he said. A lot of people want us to bring back the cat song.
Well, I can do it now. We can just play it randomly.
There we go.
We could always make that the Albuquerque Round Table intro, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That should be the intro to the.
Okay. Well, let's do that for next time.
Okay, I've got one.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Who's this from? Sorry. Let me see. Oh, PBR Steve. He says, "Hi, guys. Just wanted to say I love the show. I'm going through your collection of reviews and have enjoyed all of them." Ooh, my love feeds. I just recently borrowed a copy of Slaughter High from my local American Legion, of all places. I saw the movie 20 years ago and remember liking it. Upon seeing it again, I have fallen in love with it. I've watched it several times. In your review, you all seem to agree that Marty Ranson was responsible for the accident that happened to him in the chemistry lab. I don't know if I have a different copy of the movie you all watched, but just prior to the explosion, Skip walks into the lab and places a white powder substance into a glass. If you watch the color of the liquid in the glass on the Bunsen burner when Marty is checking his notes, it is the same as the one Skip puts the substance in, thus resulting in the domino effect of events. If I'm wrong, sorry for wasting your time. Much love, PBR Steve.
Well, see, I think he's right in that, but my reasoning is that Marty was such a moron and a klutz that he pretty much brought it on himself by knocking over all the beakers and stuff like that.
Yes, I think that's what we meant, is that he was just a bit of a klutz. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did have the intelligence to keep a giant jar of sulfuric acid on a top shelf.
Yes.
I can't remember. Did that sulfuric acid even have a lid on it?
Probably not.
It did, but it was glass, and it fell and broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But good to hear from. Always good to hear from new time listeners.
New time listeners?
No, new time listeners. No, new time. No,
first time callers. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, you don't.
And see, if we want to get technical, I don't think sulfuric acid would last in glass. I think it has to be in some kind of polymer or something. Otherwise, it would just eat through the glass or anything like metal.
Well, it may not have been sulfuric. I don't know what kind it was, to be honest.
I mean, Marty was pretty much doomed either way, so.
Well, yes.
Look, it's a movie where Carolyn Monroe is a 15-year-old girl. I don't think there's anything to get too uptight about.
No, absolutely. So, have we got? I've got one here. Shall I read mine?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hello, gentlemen, and Erik. Thanks for last episode's review of Jason Lives. I really expected you guys to completely trash the movie, since it's probably the least exploitation-y. Part 6 is my second favourite after Part 2. Kristen Baker. The script is actually decent and doesn't just retread the whole partying teens being killed by Jason concept. Speaking of Jason, CJ Graham is, for my money, the best Jason. He really pulls it off. The whole unstoppable killing machine idea without the asthmatic breathing of Kane Hodder. Funnily enough, he was mentioned that this time. He was also the first one I saw in the theatre, as well as being shot in my home state of Georgia. Looking forward to next month to your review of Carrie versus Jason. Thanks again, guys. And that's Corey from Colorado.
I think that's the same one who sent the joke in.
Yep. Oh, was it? Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's synchronicity for you. But it's it's funny. It preempts what you're saying about the asthmatic, heavy breathing of Kane Hodder, which I don't remember ever hearing Jason breathe before. Obviously, Michael Myers has got that that asthma, isn't he?
Kane Hodder, he just kind of like when he's breathing, he just puffs his chest up and out, and just kind of like almost kind of. He's almost like a stage performer, like a mime, just kind of doing, interpretive moves and stuff like that. I can see where he's coming from with that.
Cool. Okay. Have we got any more?
I do want to say before we move on that's one thing that I know the fans have talked about a lot. And they talk about that with Michael Myers and Jason and stuff about who's their favorite, but to me, like, they're all the same. It's just a guy in a mask. I never really noticed the subtle differences, I guess. Maybe I'm just not really a subtle kind of guy.
Well, you, the movies you like, Nathan, that's probably a very astute observation.
Maybe that's the most self-observant I've ever been.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if I'm thinking of Crazy Fat Ethel Part 2, then that's probably not a subtle
You guys...
movie.
I rewatched Death Nurse, and I cannot wait to pick it. I'm so excited.
And we know that Crazy Fat Ethel probably has asthma, along with hypertension, gallstones, bladder issues, diabetes.
You just better stay away from her if she's heading to the fridge.
Exactly.
Give me that key, Granny.
She'll chase you around that coffee table like there's no tomorrow.
And all you got to do is do like a little trot.
Yeah.
Right, is that anyone? Have we got any others?
No, I think that's it.
That's it. Okay.
Nathan, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
No, all that's left for us now is for Nathan to, finally reveal what his pick is for the next week.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on to your hats.
God help us all.
Well, we're moving into warmer weather, so I think it's time for us to move back to the lake. So we are going to move on into the land of a double feature with Terror at 10 Killer and Blood Lake.
Oh. Twice the Van Damage.
You guys are going to feel totally different. I've noticed that with a lot of my picks, at least one of you has said that you didn't hate the movie as much this time around. So I expect that from one of you. Well, Justin said it during Splatter University.
Yes, he did.
I did, yes.
I won't be in that episode. I'm getting a polyp removed.
Well, you know what? I named
it Terror at 10 Killer.
Because here's the problem. I said, if any of you can't make it, then I will just put it off until you're back. And as soon as you come back, that's what we're going to cover.
And
so,
remember,
Justin, what's our next pick, Justin?
Well, no, I was going to say, do you remember Johnny Krug said he wanted to come on that, didn't he? In a moment of insanity.
Get him on there and punish him a little bit, too.
Yes.
And the fact is, you made me sit through Silent Rage, so...
Johnny, hey, come on now. Apples and oranges here. Johnny, if you're listening, you are invited on Nathan's House of Pain.
Yeah.
That could be their new segment.
It's going to be so much fun.
Nathan's House of Pain by the lake.
So
you guys know that y'all have a lot of fun trashing these movies.
That's true. I don't think I've seen Blood Lake.
Neither have I.
Kept on getting mixed up with Blood Hook.
God, Blood Lake, there is so much excitement in that film. When you watch the kids ski for like 20 minutes and then watch them play quarters for about 15 minutes, it's awesome.
I think we asked you before if it was better or worse than Terror at 10 Killer, and you said worse.
I think it might be a little worse.
It is worse.
Ouch.
And it's shot on video as well, so.
What year is it from?
Come on.
88 or 89?
It was late 80s. I don't remember the exact year, but I know it's late 80s.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, if you can, dear listener, if you can face it, then join us again in 2 weeks' time.
Give Nathan his due. I'm sorry, Justin. Give Nathan his due. Someone for the podcast picks, someone has actually picked a couple that might even be worse than Nathan's, but you'll find that out eventually.
The things we do for love.
Yeah.
I have to wonder sometimes, like, out of all the movies we covered, like, what's your guys' like least favorite one that we've discussed?
Terror at 10 Killer and Blood Lake. Oh no,
yeah, but we haven't discussed that yet.
No, that's true.
Yes.
I always thought y'all's least favorite was Crazy Fat Ethel 2.
Oh no, I think we've done worse than that probably.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to think actually. I can't remember. But maybe that can be a talking point for at some point.
Yeah, that might be a good one.
But yeah, no, I think it's going to be an interesting time next time.
I think Nathan's Aloysius roundtable for next time should be what's our least favorite movie we've covered so far.
Yeah. That sounds
all right,
good.
it's settled. That's what we'll do, since, and it has to be up to
considering what we're going to be covering. I think it would be fitting.
Yes.
For
yeah,
this
and you can't pick those, so that'll give y'all time to look through the back catalog. Well, I'm sure you already know what mine is.
Yeah, Silent Rage.
Silent Rage, yes. But this is already turning into an epic, this episode.
Yes.
We are over 2 hour mark, so it's one of our longer ones. So I think we should get on with our lives.
Before we log out, I just want to say we're down to about 20-ish days left on the Gory Graduation thing. So if you want to get involved with that, there's still time. We did some math. If every one of our likes would donate just $17, we'd be at our goal. But there's a lot of good stuff left. So if you can get in on that, we'd appreciate it. And I think Axel would too out here and moving around.
That's him. That was him yawning.
Yeah. No, please do support Gory Graduation, because we'd all like to see that getting made. And again, it's myself and Erik will have our cameos, although we're not quite sure what they are. Yeah.
I already know what your cameos are going to be. I'll let you know soon.
Okay.
Well, here it is. You guys have to fly over here, and you have to pay your own way, and then we'll let you be in a background scene as an extra.
No. Can you write us in as a Skype thing, or we could film ourselves doing something?
Yeah.
Well, not that thing.
There you go.
Erik
you
might
can have Justin and Erik talking to each other on Skype, and they both get killed by the graduation killer at the same time.
Yeah, he flies all the way to Scotland to kill them both.
Hey.
So
you're both British.
I'm not going to rise to this.
So anyway, well, thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues, and you will come back and join us again for Nathan's World of Pain, and it'll be an interesting time, maybe.
Yes.
So we're going to be playing out with some music, are we?
Yes,
from
the
Friday
end
13th
credits
Part 7?
music. The wonderful end credits music. Ooh, the excitement.
Okay, right. Okay, well, see you next time, and hopefully Nathan will be fully recovered. And okay, we'll see you for some more fun at the lake.
Axel will be with us.
The tap dancing dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right,
well, he slept through this whole podcast, but then at the very end, he's bouncing around.
Yeah, that's all good. Okay, right, we'll see you soon, and have a good day.
Yep.
Say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, good people.
Goodbye, good people.
It sounded like you slipped something in there.
Sorry?
No, you went, ooh, like as if you...
Oh, no, I'm trying to fix my cushion underneath my bottle.
I was just saying that Nathan sounds like he's putting on a sexy voice.
It is a sexy voice. Sorry, he sounds what?
Heterosexual.
He does sound heterosexual.
Oh.
Well, how ironic is that for the Friday the 13th episode?
I know.
Okay, so we'll come into that.